Welcome to the Three Martini Lunch. Grab a stool next to Greg Corombos of Radio America and Jim Garrity of National Review. Three martinis coming up.
Really glad you're with us to start out the week. Good, bad, crazy martinis for conservatives today. All of them based on reporting from Politico, actually. Jim, the first story we're looking at from Politico is the story of a special election in Louisiana's 5th congressional district over the weekend. This is the seat that was won by Luke Letlow. Originally back in November, he was the top vote getter, had to go to a runoff, easily won the runoff. And then shortly thereafter, he contracted COVID, developed a number of complications, and died, a fairly young guy in his early 40s. So then a scramble to replace him, but it was pretty clear early on who the party wanted, and that was his widow, Julia Letlow, in a 12-way race. She took 62% of the vote on Saturday. She had a Trump endorsement. The party pretty much rallied around her. Everybody else was kind of an also-ran. She's pretty impressive in her own right. PhD in communication from the University of South Florida. Works as an executive at the University of Louisiana, Monroe. A mother of pretty young kids, and she just lost her husband. She made him an issue in the campaign. The quote from her spot here says, "While losing Luke has been devastating, I know that two things can be true at the same time. A person can be full of grief while still having hope for the future." And so she's promised to be a conservative when it comes to values, protecting unborn children and the right to bear arms. It's a highly Republican district, Jim. This is not a big surprise, but it's good to know that she's won convincingly. Hopefully she'll be a good member of Congress, and the legacy of her husband's good work continues here as well.
Yeah, I mean, the good news is not necessarily that a Republican won in this district. It's not very shocking. It's a pretty darn Republican district, but we've seen this happen before, and nothing against the, fine widows of the world. But sometimes when the widow of a deceased member of Congress or deceased senator or governor runs, it's sort of a placeholder. It's almost going on name recognition. It's going on public sympathy. And you have a figure in office who would not probably be in that seat if not for these circumstances. Now, look, this was somebody who was a finalist to be university president, University of Louisiana at Monroe, by, almost just about every measure you can think of. Julia Letlow is perfect, not only just, legally qualified to be a member of Congress, but a really strong figure to be a member of Congress, and may well be in the House for many years and may do not just a good job of representing this district, but you could conceivably see her being a leader in Congress, particularly on issues where she spent her career on higher education. And Lord knows we could use some good federal legislation on higher education because there's a lot wrong with it. Kind of a nice little pleasant surprise out of a really unfortunate set of circumstances. And it'll be interesting to see what Julia Letlow does when she arrives in the House. And again, one more addition of, the class of 2020 of House Republicans, a lot of minorities, a lot of women, a lot of veterans. And this is just kind of one more that will kind of fit into that category and is probably worth watching in the months and years to come.
I am never going to run for office, but Mrs. Corombos, when we were dating, made me promise to never run for anything. And so I fully intend to keep that promise, Jim. So regardless of how things shake out, I don't know if in the Garrity household such promises have been made, but I will not be seeking official office. I don't think at any time. I'm fairly
certain my wife knows I'd never get elected to anything. So I never had to make that promise.
Especially now, we're way too politically incorrect. We were probably that before, but we also live in Northern Virginia.
Let's go to so Mr. Candidate Garrity, are you sure Disney really has a CTU unit like that? And is it do you support goofy waterboarding suspects that way?
Yes, is the answer. Keep in mind, though, that we'd be running in Northern Virginia, and so our share of the vote would not be very high for anything involving local or statewide politics in Virginia, I'm pretty sure at this point. Let's talk about our great sponsor today, Ladder Insurance. Look, life is fragile. We see it in this story. We see it in a lot of different stories from throughout the past year, especially with the pandemic. And you absolutely want to make sure that your family is going to be taken care of if the unfortunate happens. And so it makes sense to get life insurance, especially term coverage, which is surprisingly affordable. If you haven't looked into it, it really is affordable. So why not pay a little bit each month to protect the ones you love? If you're asking yourself this question, you really want to take a look at Ladder.
Ladder makes it impressively fast and easy to get covered. You just need a few minutes and a phone or laptop to apply. Ladder's smart algorithms work in real time, so you'll find out instantly if you're approved. There are no hidden fees and you can cancel anytime. And since life insurance costs more as you age, now is the time to cross it off your list.
So check out Ladder today to see if you're instantly approved. Go to ladderlife.com/martini. That's LADDER life.com/martini. Ladderlife.com/martini. All right, Jim, on to our bad martini now. The Democrats, unfortunately, have more than one way to skin the cat of getting around the 60-vote threshold that has traditionally, at least in recent tradition, been the way you have to get to pass legislation in the U.S. Senate. You need 60 votes to cut off debate and then a simple majority on the final vote on an issue. But there's talk now of watering down the filibuster, make it a real talkathon, at which point you still have the vote at the end, other different machinations of that. The other tool that we've seen already used in this current setup is reconciliation. Now, the Republicans used this back in 2017 to try and repeal Obamacare. They still failed, but they did use it to get through the tax cut reform bill at the end of 2017. But reconciliation only gives you a certain window of opportunity to get this stuff done, and the Democrats plan to use it heartily. Politico. Less than 2 weeks after President Joe Biden signed into law one of Congress's most expansive measures in decades, House Democratic leaders are already dreaming bigger. With most items on their agenda hobbled by the Senate filibuster, top House Democrats are eyeing ways to muscle through drug pricing and climate policy goals using the same arcane budget process that let the party bypass GOP votes for its pandemic aid bill. Sweeping immigration bills are also on the wish list for many members, with Democrats eager to fit what they can in Biden's next high-profile package, which could be the party's last shot at using the budget tool before the midterm elections. House Budget Committee Chairman John Yarmuth saying it's going to be a kitchen sink. Virtually everyone's going to want to get their priorities done through reconciliation. We'll see what we can accommodate. So, Jim, it's omnibus everywhere. We're going to figure out a way to make sure that the rights of the minority in the Senate don't matter. And so by hook or by crook, they're going to try to jam all of this through. This is obviously very bad news. It forces you, if the Democrats get away with this on a parliamentary basis, to win at least one vote among Democrats in the Senate, which is not something I'm confident we can do on a lot of these issues. So where do we stand?
Yeah, so you begin to realize just how much the power of the minority in the Senate has been dependent upon the majority deciding to recognize the minority's right to block certain things. That once you've decided, well, we're going to hammer this through, 50 votes, vice president breaking the tie, that's all we need. It's interesting. A couple of weeks ago, I was hearing, actually not a couple, let's say less than a week ago, I was hearing from a good GOP Capitol Hill source who was talking about the infrastructure bill. And they said that, look, Democrats have been saying, oh, we want to do stuff regular order. Like, clearly the Democratic message is we want to do regular order until we can't get what we want. And then when we can't, we're going to go try to do it through reconciliation. His understanding of the rules was that if you want to use reconciliation, you need a fiscal year 22 budget resolution passed under regular order, which you then use reconciliation to deploy. Basically, you're adjusting the budget that you pass through the normal process. And his argument is, okay, well, the GOP just won't sign off on the budget resolution. That'll be able to block things, or they can play hardball on a debt ceiling increase, filibustering them, and that could give the Republicans some sort of leverage in this process. And it sounded good on paper, Greg, but then you think through, if you have the votes to pass through what we just saw with the COVID relief bill, party line votes and a 51 to 50 vote in the Senate, or in the case of that COVID relief bill, it was 50 votes to 49 because one Republican didn't vote. Well, then you can do that for a budget resolution as well. And in fact, by the way, budget resolutions cannot be stalled in the Senate by a filibuster, and it doesn't need the president's signature. So by that standard, House Republicans and Senate Republicans, despite having 50 votes in the Senate and despite having like 5 votes short in the House, have no leverage over this process. And that theoretically, the Democrats could try to invoke reconciliation on every major priority they have this year. The problem is that that would turn into another way of effectively doing away with the filibuster. If you pass, I guess the only effective veto that Republicans would have would come in the form of the Senate parliamentarian, who, again, as you may recall from the COVID relief bill, wouldn't allow the $15 an hour minimum wage increase to go through because it couldn't justifiably be argued as an adjustment to the federal government. So using reconciliation might tweak that Democratic priority list a little bit. They wouldn't get everything, but they would get a lot of what they wanted. And the Republican leverage for this is pretty darn low, other than to say, kind of as Mitch McConnell had said with the threat of the repealing the filibuster, either in part or entirely. Once we're back in the majority, we're going to make you guys pay, and we're going to ram through every single item we like through with 50 votes or 51 votes, and there's going to be a darn thing you guys can do about it, and you'll regret it the same way you lived to regret what you did on judicial nominations. Maybe that will deter a couple of them. I don't know. But the other thing, which I think we should be very nervous about, is that the Joe Manchins and Kirsten Sinemas of the world, who have said they don't want to get rid of the filibuster, might not be nearly as opposed to saying, hey, let's just do everything through reconciliation, and using that as a workaround to basically make the filibuster toothless because it can't be applied to bills that are coming through with reconciliation.
And then you can tacitly claim that you never voted to kill the filibuster, I guess. In Washington, that supposedly counts as keeping your promise, I guess. It's going to be ugly. So get some rest, Republicans. It's going to be a long stretch here as this reconciliation effort continues on a number of issues where Democrats want to do terrible, terrible things. And as long as you're doing that, you might as well grab some stuff from MyPillow if you're going to need the rest and the energy for the fights to come. But MyPillow is more than just a fantastic pillow because they give the same attention they've given their pillows to their towels and sheets. And right now, 3 Martini Lunch listeners can buy one and get one free on all 6-piece towel sets and the Giza Dream Sheet sets.
MyPillow towels have proprietary technology that makes them highly absorbent. They're soft to the touch without that lotiony feel. They have a 10-year warranty and a 60-day money-back guarantee. They're washable, they're dryable, and they have 7 colors to choose from.
I just tried the towels for the first time today, and you are correct, Jim. They are highly absorbent and soft to the touch. Very good stuff. The MyPillow Giza Dreams bed sheets are made with the world's best cotton. The sateen weave gives them a luxurious finish and will have you sleeping like a dream. Also, a 10-year warranty and 60-day money-back guarantee. Washable and dryable to stay healthy. Wide variety of colors and sizes. So visit mypillow.com. And right now, for our listeners at 3 Martini Lunch, all 6-piece towel sets and Giza sheets are buy one, get one free. Use the promo code Martini at checkout or call 800-874-0104. That's mypillow.com, code Martini, or call 800-874-0104 for buy one, get one free on all 6-piece towel sets and the Giza Dream Sheets. All right, Jim, on to our crazy martini now. And you have certainly had frustrations over time with the rollout of vaccines in various states and just how the Biden administration has handled the overall distribution of the vaccine. We are seeing better daily numbers now. I think we've cleared 3 million recently. I think one day we even got over 4 million. But there's still a backlog here, and today you're looking at the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. You write today in the Corner, Politico reports that 3 weeks after the U.S. Food and Drug Administration approved the one-shot Johnson & Johnson vaccine, 2.3 million of the 4.3 million doses of the vaccine delivered have actually been administered. That's an abysmally disappointing 53.4%. That's the phrase I'm using for my bracket after the first couple rounds here, Jim. Abysmally disappointing, but it's far more significant when it comes to vaccine distribution. And you say, much like the early weeks of the Moderna and Pfizer shots, no one is entirely sure what the holdup is. But as Politico reports, senior Biden administration officials have met privately to try and figure out what happened. 2 senior administration officials believe states are conserving those supplies until there's enough to reach underserved communities and specific groups like teachers or the disabled. But multiple state officials say they're using whatever they get as soon as they get it. So, Jim, the idea of stockpiling is not one that's sitting well with you, I can tell.
No. So here's the thing. If you want to say, look at the numbers of vaccinations of actually getting it from the manufacturers into people's arms for the first month, under the Trump administration. It was the first month they were having a hard time. If you want to say, the second month, once Biden took over, there were all those, the percentage that was ending up in people's arms, that was still low. Okay, Biden and his team are coming in. They're getting up to speed. They didn't have the normal transition. Okay, fine. Well, we're now 3 months in. We're now, it's 3 months and a week into our vaccination process. Nobody's a rookie anymore. Nobody has no experience. We've been doing this for 3 months. There really shouldn't be these sorts of backlogs and kind of clogs in the pipeline, so to speak. By the way, if you want to think about our overall numbers of how many vaccines are getting from the manufacturers to the states and from the states into the distribution centers and then into people's arms, as of this morning, we've used 79%. That's basically where it's been over the last couple of weeks. It's gone as low as 74%. At one point in late February, we were up at 83.9%, almost 84%. Now, you want shots in people's arms. They're not doing anybody any good sitting on a shelf somewhere. Now, obviously, some of this is going to have some transportation costs. You're going to have people who make appointments and then don't show up. You're going to have extra doses, and you run around trying to find people to get that. Like, granted, you're going to have some mistakes. You're going to have some problems. But ideally, you'd be getting them into arms as quickly as possible. And I talk in today's Morning Jolt, looking at which states are doing the best job, which states are doing the worst job. But the Johnson & Johnson, that's the one-shot one. One and done. Like, once you don't have to worry about scheduling for another appointment 3 weeks from now or 4 weeks from now. And there's just no good reason to be sitting on this. And yet, apparently, at least according to the Biden administration, they think states are conserving their Johnson & Johnson shots until there's enough to reach, quote, underserved communities and specific groups like teachers or the disabled. Well, look, if you want to get, underserved communities to get the doses, you got to use the doses. If you open up your vaccination appointments to teachers, open them up to the disabled, go figure out where they are and get it out to them. Operate your sites longer hours, right? You don't do any good by having that dose sitting on the shelf. And in really worst case scenarios, I assume nothing will be held on the shelf long enough to expire. But these things don't last forever. And it just seems like exceptionally poor planning. And it's one thing to have poor planning or these kinds of logistical snafus in the first month. It's maybe excusable in the second month, but it's really tough to excuse in the third month. And this is the third vaccine. And arguably, this is the most important vaccine because, each one you get a shot in, boom, they're done. You don't have to worry about them anymore. Deeply frustrating. It's the exact same problem 3 months in. This is much less excusable from where I'm sitting. And I just don't understand because from the very beginning, Fauci and the CDC, anybody who looks at this is going to tell you the same thing. A dose only does you good if it's in a person. Find needles, find people who haven't been vaccinated yet, and start stabbing them with the needle. I have a step size. Don't stab them in general. Deeply frustrating. We'll see if this improves, but 53 just under 54% after 3 weeks. This is one of the two we had stockpiled in that warehouse in West Baltimore. The other one is the AstraZeneca one, which, by the way, new results from the U.S. trials for that one are in, and that one is 70-some% effective. That one's just fine. Let's get moving on this, FDA. We've got plenty of vaccines, and we've got people who want vaccines, but the process is not going. Oh, by the way, one last detail, which I just think is just to kind of give you perspective of how amazing Pfizer and Moderna and Johnson & Johnson have been so far. They are expected by the end of this month, by the end of March, they will have manufactured 132 million doses. In February, they had 48 million doses. That's nearly triple. It's just an amazing job by these manufacturers. They are churning them out by an unbelievable amount of speed, fantastic rate, exactly what we need in this pandemic. And the state governments just can't get into people's arms fast enough.
Wow. It's got to be kind of like whiplash for the Johnsons to be looking at other people and saying, why are you guys so disappointing?
Yeah, just like with free agency.
It's a Jets joke, not a Johnson & Johnson joke. It's a Jets joke, of course. Jim, have a great day. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, Greg.
Jim Garrity, National Review. I'm Greg Corombos, Radio America. Thanks for being with us today. Please do subscribe to the 3 Martini Lunch podcast. We're very grateful for your 5-star ratings and your kind reviews. Please get us on those home devices. All you have to say is play 3 Martini Lunch podcast. Follow us on Twitter. He's at Jim Garrity. I'm at Dateline_DC. Have a great Monday, and we'll see you again on Tuesday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.
Biden's denial on the border surged, $1,400 stimulus checks hitting people's bank accounts, and why is everyone so focused on canceling kids' cartoons? Hey, it's the Chicks from the Chicks on the Right podcast.
Download and subscribe to our daily podcast to hear us pick apart and pick on the news of the day. Politics to pop culture, nobody's safe, but it's all fun. Subscribe on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts.